It was a bright afternoon, the kind of day when sunlight poured through the tall windows of the suburban mansion, casting golden beams across the polished wooden floors. Outside, the world moved on peacefully, unaware of the silent storm brewing behind those walls. Inside, however, there was no warmth, no comfort in the rays that lit the home. In the kitchen, a little girl, no older than 6, sat trembling on the cold tiles with her baby brother clutched tightly in her arms. Tears streamed down her cheeks, each sob echoing in the suffocating stillness. A bottle lay shattered on the floor, milk pooling around the broken glass, a small accident that had carried consequences far greater than spilled liquid. Her tiny voice quivered as she whispered into the silence, "Please, Mommy, don't hurt us." That single plea carried the weight of fear no child should ever know. Then, the front door opened with a heavy thud, its sound breaking the tense quiet like a sudden crack of thunder. Stepping inside was her father, a man of immense wealth, admired in the city not only for the empire he had built with his own hands but also for the generosity that had made him a symbol of success and respect. Dressed sharply in a tailored suit, briefcase in hand, he walked in expecting to be greeted by the familiar calm of his home. Instead, his eyes fell upon a scene that shattered his soul, his little girl huddled on the floor, protecting her infant brother with all the strength her tiny arms could muster, shielding him from the anger of the woman who was supposed to love them as her own. In that moment, his world shifted. The fortune he had built, the admiration he had earned, the long hours spent in meetings and boardrooms, all of it felt suddenly worthless. None of his success mattered when compared to the image before him, his daughter trembling in fear, begging not to be hurt. For months, he had missed the subtle signs, the fading sparkle in her eyes, the way she clung to him a little longer each morning when he left for work, the silent tears she tried to wipe away when no one was watching. Grief and ambition had blinded him to the truth. He had lost his first wife years ago, a wound that never truly healed, and in his attempt to rebuild, he thought remarrying would restore the warmth of a family for his daughter and newborn son. What he failed to see was the darkness hidden behind his new wife's smile. The woman who stood in his kitchen that day was not the nurturing figure he believed she could be. Beneath her polished exterior, she carried envy and resentment, emotions that had quietly poisoned her heart. She did not see the children as blessings, but as obstacles, a burden that tethered her to responsibilities she never embraced. And so, the smallest mistakes became her excuse to unleash cruelty. The spilled milk was not just milk on the floor to her, it was another chance to remind the children of her authority, another reason to punish innocence, but what she did not know was that this time, she was no longer hidden. As the father's gaze locked on the trembling figure of his daughter, something within him broke. He could no longer remain blind, no longer drown in denial. In a rush of emotion, he dropped his briefcase and thundered across the room, his voice echoing through the vast mansion with a force that shattered the silence. "Enough," he roared, his words carrying both fury and heartbreak. Startled, his wife froze where she stood, the bottle slipping from her hand as the truth of her cruelty became undeniable. For the first time, she realized she could no longer hide behind closed doors, no longer mask her coldness in his absence. The shadows had been exposed, and with them, the sanctuary that was supposed to protect his children had been revealed as a house of pain. And in that single instant, everything changed. The walls of wealth and status that had once shielded her cruelty crumbled in a matter of seconds, and in the days that followed, everything changed. The millionaire who once woke up with his mind consumed by business meetings, contracts, and towering ambitions now thought of none of it. The empire he had built no longer seemed urgent, because his heart had found a greater purpose. His only focus became his children. He spent his mornings holding his daughter close, listening to the fragile whispers that broke from her lips when memories of fear surfaced. He promised her, again and again, that she would never be left alone in the shadows of terror. He cradled his infant son with the tenderness of a man who had learned the true weight of fatherhood, vowing with every fiber of his being that no harm would ever come near him again. Slowly, the mansion that had once echoed with silence and hidden cries began to change. The air that once carried dread now carried hope. Therapists were brought in to guide them toward healing, gentle routines were woven into their days, and nights no longer ended in fear, but in the soft reassurance of love and safety. Where success was once measured in signed deals and towering profits, the man now measured success in the fragile yet growing smile on his daughter's face, in the peace he saw when his baby son slept soundly in his arms. For the first time in his life, he realized that wealth could purchase many things: comfort, security, even admiration, but the greatest treasure he could ever give his children was not found in riches, but in his time, his presence, and his unwavering love. Healing did not come instantly. There were nights when the little girl would still wake up crying, clutching her brother so tightly it seemed she feared he might vanish if she let go. There were days when sudden sounds made her flinch, her body reacting to ghosts of the past. But each time, her father was there, holding her hand, soothing her with gentle words, assuring her that the nightmare was over and that she was safe in his arms. Through patience, persistence, and devotion, he slowly taught her heart to trust again. Within those walls, he was no longer just the man the city admired, the millionaire who commanded boardrooms and built empires. Within those walls, he became something far greater, a father who fought relentlessly for his children's peace, a protector who refused to let shadows steal their joy again. As months passed and turned into a year, the transformation became undeniable. The little girl who once whispered in fear began to laugh again, her eyes regaining the sparkle of innocence that had been stolen too soon. Her laughter filled the rooms that once carried silence, and with every sound of joy, the mansion grew warmer, more alive. Her baby brother, nurtured in an environment now overflowing with tenderness, grew up surrounded by love, shielded by a father who understood the true meaning of protection. Those scars of the past remained etched in their hearts, they no longer represented weakness. They stood instead as reminders of survival, of endurance, and of the strength born from second chances. And so, on another sunny afternoon, beneath the same golden rays that once lit a scene of sorrow, the mansion now radiated peace. The little girl no longer whispered desperate pleas of fear, instead, she laughed as she ran through the garden, her baby brother toddling nearby, their father watching with pride and gratitude in his eyes. What had once been a house of shadows was now a true home, a place not defined by its grandeur or its riches, but by trust, compassion, and the unbreakable bond of a family rebuilt through love.